Welcome to Life as a Soldier podcast, a Demon Radio production. My name is Command Sergeant Major Albert Serrano, also known as Demon 7, and I will be your host. Make sure to like and subscribe to this podcast to hear the stories and lessons learned from some of the bravest and hardest working men and women in the United States Army. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to episode 6 of our Life as a Soldier podcast. As always, I am your host, Command Sergeant Major Albert Serrano, aka Demon 7, and in today's episode, we will discuss and highlight the importance of Army traditions. To help me guide today's discussion, we have some very special guests on the show. My very own teammates, the Command Sergeants Major and Sergeants Major of the Demon Brigade. So let's meet them all. Starting with 1-1, please introduce yourself by giving us your name, your duty position, family, and hobbies. When you're ready.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Command Sergeant Major Scott McGee. I am the Senior Enlisted Advisor for 1-1 Attack Battalion, also known as Gunfighter 7. Been in the Army 29 total years, 27 active years, and 2 years in the National Guard. I am married with 4 children, and my hobbies include lifting weights and doing a ton of schoolwork in my free time. Happy to be here and look forward to the discussion.
Hey, thanks, Sergeant Major McGee. Welcome. Let's go over to Sergeant Major Bowen.
Good afternoon. I'm Sergeant Major David Bowen, and I am the Senior Enlisted Advisor for the 601st ASB for Lieutenant Colonel Vanderlucht. I've been in the Army for 26 years. In 2 weeks, I'll be there, 26 years. I'm married with 2 kids, and my main hobby is cycling. I average about 100 miles a week, so we get after it as and when we can around here, but it's a good time. And I'm also into weightlifting because I like to keep the engine strong. But that's me in a nutshell.
All right, thanks for joining us, Sergeant Major Bowen. Sergeant Major Mullins.
Good afternoon. I'm Sergeant Major Nathan Mullins. I'm the Brigade Operations Sergeant Major. I've been in the Army for 23 years as a Black Hawk crew chief and now a desk jockey. And I'm married with 2 kids. My hobbies include grilling, working on cars, and woodworking. And I am glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining me today as we try and shed some light on why keeping traditions alive is so important, not only to us, but to the ones that will be coming after us. So before we dive into the discussion, what is a tradition, right? And so this standard definition is a tradition is a belief or a behavior passed down within a group or a society with symbolic meaning or special significance from generation to generation. So in our case, obviously, we're all soldiers, so we're talking about Army traditions, and again, why they're so important. So let you think about that for a second, and I'll throw out the first kind of food for thought kind of question, and then in no particular order, feel free to jump in when you have something to say, Sergeant Major. So I'll throw this out there. For you specifically, why is tradition important, and what are some of your favorite Army traditions?
Actually, Sergeant Major, I'll go ahead and open up with that if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
So some of my favorite ones are actually some of the ones that you're starting to see a little bit less. And those are the battalion runs, cadence calling, the esprit de corps in formations. And those are important because they actually help in building the team. So as you've seen in recent years, we've had this mantra about team building and being effective groups. With doesn't matter the size and things like that. Physical fitness together, singing while running to help alleviate the stress of running long distances in formation, trying to hype up, your unit or your squad being the best element, are great for building teams and building like a professional force at the small unit level. And I believe that's the main focus that we need to keep going forward. And it's something that just makes, I think, units better overall.
Yeah, those are great points, Sergeant McGee. And I couldn't agree with you more. You hit on some of my favorites. Maybe because I was a drill sergeant one day many years ago, or some, or just been in the Army for a little while, like all of us on this podcast today. But I agree with you that doing anything in as a group, as a team, as a platoon, company, battalion, etc. There is no better way to build a team. And obviously, when we're talking about physical fitness, i.e., running or anything like that, you guys already know how I feel about physical fitness. So I appreciate you starting off with that topic of discussion, because it's obviously near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, so Major McGee hit on some of them with the formations and the esprit de corps, which I highly concur. We brought back the battalion formations, motor pool Mondays, so that we can get everybody in one place at one time and give out the daily organization and just kind of get some feedback from where they're at and what we expect. But I'll also lead into the fact we did an induction ceremony here about 3 weeks ago. And from my perspective, the last induction ceremony I saw, bringing new sergeants and even corporals into the backbone of the Army, the core of NCOs. The last one I saw was mine in 2003. And a lot of these sergeants were approaching me here over the last probably 3 months, asking me if we could do an induction ceremony and if we had that opportunity. And I flat out said I hadn't seen one in years, but I will rise to the challenge, and I will develop it, and I will get some input from other senior NCOs, and we'll put something together. And we ended up doing it. And I had Sergeant Major Lee as my guest speaker, and she knocked it out of the park, even though she wasn't wearing her glasses, but that's okay. She did extremely well. And my main point and focus for the induction ceremony was to bring pride and honor into what it takes to be a non-commissioned officer, and two, just the responsibilities that you are getting ready to bear. And it was just, it was an emotional moment, actually. And I saw a lot of them. They saw the overwhelming, the posterity of what being a non-commissioned officer is in the Army. They never had that experience before. And I wanted to make it professional, and I wanted everybody to see it. So I opened it up to officers within the units here, and absolutely they loved it, and great feedback from it. And I think it built esprit de corps, because a lot of the officers, they don't get to see what it takes for non-commissioned officers, to be inducted and to see the responsibilities that they're getting ready to bear. And part of that falls into the building teams. If we're going to build teams, we have to have solid non-commissioned officers from the core, from the beginning. And that's where we do it. And we do it a lot through drill and ceremony. That's fallen off as well. But drill and ceremony builds teams through discipline. And it's the discipline, it's the reason why we keep the traditions, because it's a discipline to keep the tradition and to keep it alive.
So those are, I'm glad you brought up the NCO induction ceremony, because I was gonna, kind of probe you to do that, because that was one of the better events that we've conducted here since we've been deployed. But I'll tell you, you kind of wrapped it up with perfect segue for me, and I was gonna say that the younger generation, right, the NCOs that are coming up the ranks now, and soon here when we have a bunch of new corporals, which essentially they're going to be non-commissioned officers. There's no better way to show them what right looks like. I agree with you, but what makes us different and what makes us better, in my opinion, and you guys have heard me say it before, what makes us better than most Americans, if you will, but there's only a few of us that volunteer to do this, to wear the uniform. But what makes us the best is standards and discipline, the teamwork, and absolutely the traditions and the history that our Army has. And that is why I think it is super important that we continue and we bring back some of these things that we've kind of neglected, whether because of COVID or otherwise. But I think we definitely have to highlight that and show the importance of all of it. So great point. Thanks for bringing that up, Sergeant Major Bowen. Sergeant Major Mullins, any thoughts?
Absolutely. So I think kind of what we're hearing is, unit cohesion, team building, and creating a culture of inclusion. So one of my favorite kind of less formal traditions is the hail and farewell. It gives you a chance to bring everybody together, both new and old, pay respect to the folks that have busted their butt for you for the past, whatever, 1 to 5 years, however long they've been in the unit, and then to welcome the new folks in and make them feel, the team that you have and that they're going to be part of that team, and kind of give everyone a chance to socialize, learn about each other in more of a relaxed setting. And I think those are some of my favorite traditions that we kind of get away from. The cab calls for, the people in the cab, the NCO calls where you just go, in a relaxed setting and talk to each other and kind of learn from each other, talk about your week, get some experiences, and ultimately just learn and build that team.
Yeah, those are great ones as well, Sergeant Mullins. I appreciate you bringing those up. The NCO calls, as you guys know, we discussed. We're getting ready to do one here on Stork. But I agree with you. And the hail and farewell, super important, super important. I agree with you because that is about the only time you really get to thank someone in a somewhat public setting, if you will, where others can hear. Because it's easy to thank somebody like just one-on-one. But and a lot of us obviously don't want the spotlight, but it's a great thing to do because most people have worked their butt out for the organization, and it's a great opportunity to recognize them. So thanks for bringing that up. Hey, so as we continue to discuss obviously tradition and the importance of them, what are, besides which ones are some of our favorites, which we've alluded to, why else do we think collectively here that after 246 years that traditions in the Army need to be, need to continue, need to not be forgotten, need to be highlighted? Why is that important? Anyone?
Sorry, Major. I think it's important because, again, you have to go back to where you came from, the lessons we've learned, and those traditions are built in the basis of our discipline and our regulations that drive how we operate. And I think it's important to carry those on and to teach those to our young soldiers. So, they know where we came from, the blue book and all that good stuff, and kind of learn why we do the things we do. And because soldiers these days, they ask why more, and it's a good thing. And I think it's important to tell them the why, and that's deeply rooted in our traditions.
Yeah, again, hit the nail on the head there with absolutely soldiers nowadays, asking the why, and you're absolutely right that it's a good thing. And we should absolutely, tell them why it's important and show them why it's important. Because, they're the ones that are going to replace us, and after that, somebody else is going to replace them. And we just can't neglect some of our history. Sergeant Major McGee, you have something there?
I do want to cotton on what Sergeant Major Mullins was saying, Sergeant Major. So where he talks about the blue book and we talk about carrying on traditions, it's also in an effort to build personal standards and conduct, right? How someone who's come from an environment, home or friend environment or whatever, before they joined the Army, carried themselves versus the way professional soldiers carry themselves, right? And there is a difference, all right? And military bearing is something that some people may have, and depending on how they were raised, they may have some semblance of military bearing, but they're not professional soldiers yet. And our tradition is to use the blue book, to use drill, ceremony, military discipline to mold young people or young brand new soldiers into professional warriors that live by the ethos that we hold dear. That is a tradition that we must continue to carry on, because that is how we develop into the further things that are important to us, like the training and development of soldiers and leaders.
Yeah, no, absolutely right, Sergeant McGee. And you said something obviously that's resonates amongst all of us, and that is the transformation from a young, or maybe not even a so young American that decides to volunteer to join our Army. But the transformation to go from civilian to soldier, and then, as you stated, just not because you complete, basic training or AIT, that's still, the job is not done. They get to our units, first duty station, and it continues with the non-commissioned officers in that unit. They continue to mold, shape, individuals into the professional soldiers that we want them to become, by using all the methods or everything available to us that you mentioned, Blue Book, standards of discipline, all that stuff. And it's, to me, it's one of the best things since I've been in the Army. I'm sure most of us can agree on this, is to see someone, like I said, a brand new civilian and go on to become a great soldier, a leader. I mean, I think that is one of the most awesome things that we do in our Army. Sergeant Major Lee, any thoughts on that? All right, Sergeant Major Bowen.
Yes, Sergeant Major, absolutely. Sergeant Major McGee hit it right on the head. And with the profession, becoming a professional, you're not a professional when you join the Army, you're a civilian transitioning. But the Army becomes a lifestyle that you adopt. And with that, your profession in it grows. So the longer you stay in it, the more you become accustomed to the traditions, the customs, the military discipline, all of that. It becomes your profession, it becomes your lifestyle. I would say as the lifestyle, it gets easier the longer you stay in. And like what you said, Sergeant Major, seeing those soldiers come in that you've mentored and have given subject matter expert advice, through various MOSs. I myself have ran into 2 soldiers that I worked with, and they were both PFCs when I was a staff sergeant. One of them's here, is in 2-1. He's the Delta Company First Sergeant, and another one is down in 214th, down in Cotterbach, and he's a First Sergeant as well. And it's absolutely amazing to see them grow when you've separated and time has passed on, and they've continued that profession, that seeking that professionalism and seeking that lifestyle, and growing and hanging on to these customs and courtesies and traditions, and answering the why. We have a new generation that's joining the Army, and we've been an Army at war for the last 2 decades. And it's a very easy excuse button to go back and go, well, that we were so focused on, terrorism that we kind of forgot our traditions and customs. They were always there because us senior NCOs have always kept them in mind. We've just never had the opportunities, if you will, to employ them because of back-to-back rotations and such. And this new generation came in, and they didn't experience the Army of the 90s or the 80s that was really the main focus of our traditions and customs and courtesies. So it becomes a lifestyle, and the longer you live it, the greater your profession grows, and the greater your respect for the profession grows as well.
Yep. You said a lot of good things there, Sergeant Bowen. I appreciate that. But absolutely, I also agree. All of us on this podcast today, will agree that the Army is a lifestyle. We have all bought into it, and I'll tell you, I know you guys feel just like I do, that I wouldn't, if I were to do it again, I'd do it exactly the same way, because the Army has been a great for myself and my family. And I chuckle a little bit about when you said about that we run some of our soldiers that we mentored in the past, and I agree with you, because most of mine, they say I was their drill sergeant or something to that effect, which was a long time ago. So I don't know. It's great to see them as first sergeants, captains, majors, warrant officers, but it just reminds me of how old I am now. So sometimes it makes me a little sad too. All right, who else has anything? Sergeant Major Mullins?
No, I mean, I agree completely. Seeing a soldier that you get fresh in your platoon, as a young sergeant, and now I'm a sergeant major, and these guys are pinning first sergeant. It's awesome to see. And I just remember all the times we had trying to get some of those guys up to where they are now. It seems like, man, I would have never thought, that some of these people would have made it this far from when they first came into the Army.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm sure some of our mentors and leaders that helped us come up through the ranks probably thought the same way about us when we were younger. Does anyone else have anything else to add on this topic right now?
Sure, Sergeant. So I'll just add that, as we continue on in our career and we look at the soldiers we've developed that are now taking leadership positions, in the senior NCO ranks, whether it's first sergeant, platoon sergeant. I've even had one of my privates who is now going to be beginning class 72 with some of our own senior NCOs from this brigade at the United States Army Sergeant Major Academy. That is very humbling to see. And you think back to those impressions that you leave with soldiers. That's the tradition that we're trying to make important for everybody. Just understanding that there is a process to developing the soldier, and then there's a further process with developing a leader. And the tradition of developing those leaders is what keeps our Army strong.
Yeah, and that was perfectly stated. And the only thing I'll add to that is simply, you guys know how I feel, and I've given you my own definition of leadership, if you will. But I would also argue that the mentors that we've had over our career, those are the individuals you don't forget, obviously. And I've said it before. I would not be sitting here today if it wasn't for the some of the people that I've run across in my Army career. Some of them that were tougher on me than others, but I'll never forget any of them, because without them I wouldn't be here today. And I know you guys have all shared some of the same stories. So I agree with you that not only do we have to transform civilians into soldiers, but also help shape and understand what it takes to be a good leader, so that they can continue to do what we've done or what we've had done for us as far as mentors go. Great point, though. Let's throw something else out there. So now I kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, but the COVID, right? COVID-19, which none of us could have seen coming in our lifetime, I'm pretty sure. That hindered a lot of the things that we were used to doing. Therefore, over the past year, there is a lot of soldiers now that have never seen something as simple as some of the things you guys have mentioned, formation, battalion runs, brigade runs, etc. And so now that we're kind of somewhat getting back to some form of normalcy. Now, some of this stuff is going to seem like, where did we come up with these things, right? It's what some of these soldiers might be saying. But what do you guys see, as far as coming out of the pandemic? And obviously we're not completely out of it yet, but as we get back to some form of normalcy, what are some traditions that some things we might do different from now on, or some of the things that we might struggle with trying to get back to normal? And that's for whoever wants to go first.
So I think the biggest thing is we haven't done solid formations in quite a while, which has also led us to not do any drill and ceremony. So when it comes time to do these change of command ceremonies and stuff like that, it's going to take a lot of rehearsals to kind of brush off the dust from COVID. And as we start moving forward and doing formations and brigade runs and DNC and marching folks and singing cadence and all the stuff that all my fellow sergeant majors have talked about, throughout this podcast. But I think that's going to be the toughest part, is reinstilling the basic knowledge of doing these basic, DNC functions and formations and stuff like that.
100% agree. Sergeant Major Lee.
Yeah, I concur with Nate said. Also, just getting out there doing open ranks inspections with the soldiers again. I know that my organization have started that, and right now that a lot of soldiers, they don't understand the reasoning behind the open ranks inspections that we're starting back doing again, and just getting back to the basics, things that we've gotten away from over the last year, Sergeant Major.
Okay. Sergeant Major Bowen.
Yeah, it's a matter of practice. We need to practice these traditions of drill and ceremony. We need to practice these formations that we haven't done in a little over a year. And like you said, Sergeant Major, we have a whole new group that have come into the Army, and they know nothing about what we're speaking of. And so we're going to have to demonstrate it to them. And then, like Sergeant Major Lee said, we have to give them the why. And it's not just because we've always done it. It's because that's how we keep traditions alive. We have to practice them. They've always been there. And we need to keep utilizing these traditions to keep moving forward, to keep our standards and discipline in check. And like Sergeant Major McGee said, it helps keep, am I trying to say here? It builds their integrity and it builds their professionalism. They learn to check and inward check on themselves. And you see it when they progress in their MOSs, they progress in the Army, whether they stay enlisted or they go commissioned or they go warrant. But it's a direct reflection on how they want to be and how they see themselves. And if they don't practice it, they're not going to perfect it. So it's a pursuit of perfection.
Yeah, well said. I agree. I mean, most of us in the Army, I'd like to think we're all type A. And so absolutely, trying to get it right the first time or continue to get, after it until you get it right or you do it to the best of your ability. I agree that it's a pursuit of perfection ongoing. Sergeant Major McGee.
Yeah, Sergeant Major. I think everybody really nailed that down real good. And one thing that I will also add is as we practice these traditions, as we explain the why, that's also the time to inject those other traditions that the soldiers hadn't seen. So they get used to the formation runs. They get used to motor pool Monday. Now you inject the, uniform inspection with a coin for the best soldier's appearance, or, give that soldier a half a day off because that soldier run the best inspection. We introduce, as we're doing right now with Soldier of the Quarter and NCO Quarter, what the perks are for the soldiers doing the extra to win those titles. What does that show the other soldiers around the Soldier of the Month who's taken a little bit of extra time and prepped him or herself to go and win that board and be recognized at the brigade level? What is it now showing our soldiers? It's showing our soldiers professionalism. It's showing our soldiers some dedication to work ethic, and then the reward that comes out of that. And we were all soldiers, young soldiers once, and we all did the best we could because we wanted that award. We wanted that time off from our first line leader, or we wanted that coin from the sergeant major, or we wanted, whatever perk, maybe a morning off from PT that would, that just showed that if you work hard and you observe tradition and you buy into what the Army has, then only good can come from it, Sergeant Major.
No, you know what? Again, I'm chuckling to myself over here because, I just, as we discuss things, bring back memories, because my first 2 AAMs in the Army were because during a battalion, Class A inspection, open ranks, as we've discussed in here, they said I looked the best in my uniform, little Private Serrano way back in the early 90s. So I agree with you. And, not that it's about the reward or the, or the accolades, if you will, but you're right about what you said. I mean, those are nice, the perks and whatever comes with it. But just the fact that you went above and beyond to prepare yourself for a board or for like I said, an inspection, and you are recognized in public by your first sergeant, commander, sergeant major, whomever, I think that is great. I mean, that you talk about walking around, with your chest out a little bit more than normal. I mean, it's a great feeling. I know all of you have, know what I mean, and have, probably got recognized in some way, shape, or form for the same kind of thing. But I agree with you. That goes a long way. And I think soldiers need to continue to see that and understand why. And that way it gives them that motivation or that pride to stay hungry and keep getting after some of those things. Perfect. I like it. So let me throw something else out there as we, kind of getting closer to the end of our podcast today. But what I would really like to hear from each one of you is going to be the following. And as I usually say in these podcasts is, I know some of our family members hear this. I know my family definitely listens to the podcast. I hope some of yours do as well. But, obviously our soldiers, that's our target audience. But in general, when we get towards the end of an episode, I like to say, hey, if you had something to say, like, something to take away as we depart today's episode, what would that be? And so this is what I'm going to throw out there, and I would like to hear from each one of you to see how you know, what the messages you want to leave soldiers with, or family members. And that is the following. What can we as leaders pass on to the junior enlisted soldiers to enable them to continue with Army traditions? In other words, you know, if you knew now, you know, or you know, if you knew back then, right, everything we know now, you know, what would you tell your younger self, right, in order to continue everything we've lived over the last 20 plus years for all of us on this net? So let's start with Sergeant Major Lee.
As I came up through the ranks, I got promoted sort of fast, and I ran through the ranks. And a lot of things, you know, I was doing as I saw, and a lot of things. And that's how I live today. I base everything I do off of the leaders that I had previously. And what I would tell soldiers is sometimes you're going to come across leaders, and some of them are not going to be great leaders, but you don't have, but they may not be great leaders, Sergeant Major, but there are parts of them that are good. And I would take that good from them and I would use that. Because a lot of soldiers, what I hear now is I don't want to be like that person. You don't have to be like that person. You can be better than that person. But that's what we need to instill in our soldiers going forward.
Yeah, Sergeant Major Lee, I wholeheartedly agree with you. You know, we have these discussions when we do our Sergeant Major meeting weekly, but I'll tell you, I agree that I think every time you talk to a soldier, especially a leader, it's a teaching opportunity, a learning opportunity, in that you're going to take something away. I say that every time I talk to soldiers, you're going to take something away from what I'm going to say right now. Good, better, and different. It doesn't matter which one it is for you. I did my job because you learned something right now. So I agree with you that whether, you know, it's good, bad, or you got a little scuffing, if you will, you're going to learn something. And you may walk away saying, you know, I want to be like that person, or I don't ever want to be like that person. Nonetheless, you learn something. So thank you for that. Sergeant Major Mullins.
Yes, Sergeant Major. So I think what I would tell younger self is, or new soldiers coming up is, don't just go through the motions. Don't just do, you know, in ranks because someone told you to do it. Understand why we do it and take the time to do it properly. Know why, how, all the ins and outs. Just don't go through the motions. Take the time to learn, to, you know, better yourself, to better your formation, and to talk to your soldiers during these events. It's a wasted opportunity if you're doing these events. You're just walking through it and you don't take that time to talk to your soldiers, to talk to your peers, and just learn about the Army and your team.
Yeah, great points, Sergeant Major Mullins. Thank you for that. Let's go over to Sergeant Major McGee.
Okay, Sergeant Major. So, not to call myself an old man, but I think over my career I've had a lot of time to process myself as a young soldier, myself as a mid-grade soldier, and myself is now as a sergeant major with a, you know, basically a lifetime of service, as we like to call it. And the thing I would offer to myself is sort of twofold. The first is, one, don't be such a hothead, and that plays into what Sergeant Major Mullen was saying. You know, ask why you're doing something. Generally, be interested in the answer, and then internalize that. That's the difference between an E4 who's just a specialist that's just showing up, just an E4, or that specialist that's actually looking for something more, that's really trying to help NCOs do their job and lead and manage soldiers. And that's one. Two is to learn yourself and take the traditions and understand your part in it. All right. A lot of people, like you said, are here just going through the motions. Was something that we were said earlier, but they didn't want to know why. They didn't care to help their little piece of the pie and do their little piece of the pie to make the Army better. But if you do that, your existence here, your time in uniform will be so much more enjoyable just to be a member of a winning team. And I will tell you that I learned that the hard way. Because I had some very rough NCOs that made my existence very unpleasant because I was bucking the system, because I didn't really want to be part of the team. But you will have so much more of a enjoyable military experience. You will get so much more out of this if you just work with the people around you and you be a good teammate.
Yeah, well said, Sergeant Major. Thank you. Sergeant Major Bowen, over to you.
Thank you, Sergeant Major. All excellent points by my peers and Sergeants Major. The only thing I'll add to that with is I would say it's worth it. I would say to my younger self and to the new generation coming up, engage with what is being presented, accept with what's being presented, and excel with what's being presented. And if you do, like Sergeant Major Mullins said, take the time to do it right. Be precise. Learn to be proficient. It's not always easy, but it is worth it, especially when you take the time to do it right. Because you can look back on a mission accomplished, not in just within yourself, but within your team. And as you grew as a profession, you can look back as a professional and go, I see where I kind of did some shortcuts, and I see where I wasn't really trying to be a part of the team, kind of like what Sergeant Major McGee was saying. And there are those times, and some of it has to do with your leadership that you don't really connect with. And you go through it. You don't go through the motions. You go through being a professional. You just tell yourself, I'm going to engage, I'm going to accept, and I'm going to excel. Type A personalities, you hit it right on the head, Sergeant Major. We are type A's, and we get after it. And that's just how we perfect our profession. And that's just how we move forward.
Yeah, thank you for those comments, Sergeant Major. All right, Sergeant Major Lee, I know you have something else to add. Go for it.
Just being humble, Sergeant Major. Being humble and recognizing that the Army was built on those traditions. That's all I had to add at the end.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'll tell you guys, today's discussion has been one of my favorites since we started these podcasts. And in closing, I'll leave you with my sort of thoughts, and that is, so this episode was titled, Army traditions, the importance of traditions are in the Army, obviously. And I'll tell you, as I said earlier, after 28 years of doing this, you're right. It gets better. It's awesome. If I were to tell, like I'll try to tell soldiers now, or my younger self then is man, you're part of the greatest fighting force known to man. You're part of the team of teams, the elite. I mean, something way bigger than ourselves. And I am super proud to be a soldier. I always have been. But at the end of the day, there's going to be a time when all of us will take the uniform off. So it is incumbent on us, right, to pass on, the knowledge, experience, and the importance of these traditions, so that those that come after us will continue to do so. And that's what makes our Army great. It's the fact that we continue, no matter who's in those positions, right? Who comes before and after. I mean, the Army is just, it just keeps rolling along, as our song says. And that to me is awesome. And finally, the fact that those that came before us are the ones that kind of, set the, the wheels in motion. So I think we kind of owe it to them to continue to, to do our best to uphold every tradition that is important and near and dear to our Army. So with that, again, really enjoy the discussion today, teammates. I appreciate you guys. You guys are, what makes this big machine known as our brigade roll along. So I appreciate you guys. Again, thank you for joining me today on a beautiful Sunday afternoon, and I hope you have a good rest of the day. Demon 7, signing out.